All right, folks. So even with the comeback win that the Chicago Cubs put on, it's time to have maybe a real uncomfortable conversation. But I think it's a conversation that there needs to start being chatter around. And I want your opinion on this down below. Let me know what you think. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. I am your host, Mike Jones. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Appreciate you. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe so that you never miss another freaking episode of Chicago Cubs Central, guys. We got hot content coming in all time, so make sure that you guys are there for that. Listen, with tonight's comeback victory, first and foremost, baseball in itself is just a really, really, really weird sport, man. The Cubs are above 500, but it feels like the ship is just sinking. And then out of the depths of nowhere, the Chicago Cubs come back and pull off a ninth inning comeback victory that allowed them to stay above water a little bit longer. Chicago Cubs looked like they were en route to their 31st loss of the season. Instead, they get their 33rd win of the season. Thanks in part to PCA, thanks in part to Ian Happ, thanks in part to, of all people, Dansby Swanson coming up to the plate in the ninth with two men out and two on and actually being able to do something with runners in scoring position. I threw the biggest fit when I saw Dansby Swanson walk up to the plate tonight. I'm just like, oh my God, like it's over. We're about to lose. Oh man, we have such momentum, but it's over with now. And what do we have? Bloop! Dansby Swanson knocks one over into left center field, and literally the place goes crazy as Kevin Alcantara scores, and that ties the game for the Chicago Cubs. And then, of course, PCA comes up with the big last final knock, a bloop single, and the Chicago Cubs win the ball game. Let this be a rallying cry for the Chicago Cubs. Let this be a moment where we can look back on the season and say, yep, that's where things kind of turned around for the Cubs again. This is where they started playing inspired baseball again, because that's really what we want to see, right? We want to see the Chicago Cubs play inspired baseball. One of the people that needs to play inspired is none other than Shota Imanaga. Now, I am and have been a huge Shota Imanaga supporter. I really, really love the energy that he brings to the Chicago Cubs. However, I began to look at Shota Imanaga, and I began to look at, what the Cubs are trying to do. And there's a couple of things here, a couple of problems. A, the Chicago Cubs need to get younger, and we'll kind of talk about that. But also, B, the Chicago Cubs also need a stabilized rotation. Maybe Shota can come and do some other things, but I'm beginning to believe that the Chicago Cubs would be better off without trotting out Shota Imanaga every 4 days. So today I'm taking a stance that many Cubs fans won't like. If Shota Imanaga keeps pitching the way he has over the last few weeks, the Cubs need to seriously consider whether he belongs in the rotation or not. And yes, that conversation eventually leads to the unthinkable, almost unfathomable thought process of, should the Cubs DFA Shota Imanaga? So, Shota Imanaga's overall numbers, still look respectable on the surface. But this is where trend matters the most. Over his last 3 starts, he has posted an 11.49 ERA while allowing 20 earned runs and 8 home runs in just 15 innings. I'm going to tell y'all right now, that's not a slump. That's a disaster. 17 home runs given up this season so far. only beat by Jameson Taillon, who's given up 20. The home run problem is exploding for him, and it's showing his biggest fallacy. Against the Cardinals recently, Imanaga surrendered 3 more home runs in a single game. His recent stretch has become defined by one thing: mistake pitches leaving the ballpark. He did it again against the Athletics tonight. It was one of those things where, like, we had them close. We kept it close, and we were like, okay, well, like I said, we keep it close. Give up one, like I said, maybe 2 runs, but that's something that can be attainable, come back from. But then the ball just started jumping off the bat of the Athletics tonight, and it looked crazy. I did not understand how the Athletics started doing that to the Chicago Cubs and to Shota Imanaga, but it might have been a portion of maybe sending Shota out just because his pitch count was low, sending Shota out again, and these guys capitalizing on that. So that falls on Craig. But what falls on Shota is the fact that he has to switch things up. If the team isn't going to force him to switch things up, he has to go and switch things up. We cannot continue to send him out there and have this continuously happen. So it kind of leads me to think to myself, he's a pitcher who succeeds through command rather than overpowering velocity. I mean, this looks like a major red flag. So here's the question. Is Shota Imanaga hurt? Now, reports have noted concerns about declining strikeout rates and possible velocity issues. Now, the reason why I don't buy that he's hurt is because Shota Imanaga never was a velocity pitcher. He never was a strikeout type pitcher. He's always been a fly ball type pitcher, which amazed me that he even chose to pitch for the Cubs in the first place, considering how the ball jumps out of Wrigley in the summer. However, in 2024, when he came to the Chicago Cubs, he had immediate success with what? Strikeouts. But how did he do it? The splitter. He was able to hide that splitter in between fastballs and get guys to strike out because the bottom of that splitter would just drop out of nowhere. Now, though, teams are sitting on that splitter, not swinging on it, waiting for a 92 meatball right in the middle of the plate, and they knock the cover off of it. The best you could hope for is that they hit a ground ball off of it, or they hit it in the air, but it doesn't have home run distance. I look at this and I say to myself, I love Shota Imanaga. I do. I really do. I love his commercials. I love how he represented the Cubs in 2024. I love that he was an all-star. I love everything that he did for us that year. Did not love Shota Imanaga in 2025. Not loving Shota Imanaga so far in 2026. We cannot, guys, as a team, as a unit, we cannot afford sentimentality. We can't afford to continuously keep on, holding on to people for the value of sentiment. We have to get people that produce. There needs to be some real uncomfortable conversations coming up real soon, and not just about Shota Imanaga. You got to have them about Jameson Taillon. You got to have them about Cade Horton. You got to have them about everybody. You got to take a real hard, long look at your roster and ask yourself, is it the player? Is it the team? Is it the organization? Is it the manager? Jed Hoyer has some real tough questions he needs to look in the mirror and ask himself, no matter how this season turns out. You're going to have to ask yourself some real tough questions, Jed Hoyer. And we'll do an episode about that, about the questions he needs to ask. But right now, in the middle of the season, if Shota Imanaga continues to, produce home runs and give up home runs at this level, the Chicago Cubs could easily find themselves dropping from division contenders into a battle just to stay relevant in the playoff race. This is truly a divisional championship roster that cannot keep struggling pitchers out there every single day. You cannot continue to keep running out there Jameson Taillon and Shota Imanaga and just allow them to give up the home run ball. You cannot. Things have gotten better for Colin Ray. Edward Cabrera comes back. He's going to pitch tomorrow for the Chicago Cubs, starter. Matthew Boyd gets his last start in Iowa, and then he'll be back probably for the next series. He'll probably start next Tuesday. So you look at this and you say to yourself, I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? If you're the organization and you're looking at Shota Imanaga, you first go to injury. You ask yourself, okay, is he injured? Does he need an IL stint? And then you ask yourself, okay, well, he's not injured. He doesn't need an IL stint, but maybe he needs some more mechanical adjustments. And maybe they gave those adjustments to Shota, and maybe he isn't using them. I don't know. Maybe it's time to move him to the bullpen. And he comes out and he throws incredible for an inning and a half or so. But at the same time, the Chicago Cubs right now are thin, dry when it comes to pitching. So putting him in the bullpen or putting him, on the IL hurts the Cubs even more. Because then you got to call up somebody like Jordan. Oh, God, please don't call up Jordan Wicks ever again. Please don't. Which leads me to the next question. If you do DFA Shota, who takes his spot? If this continues into July, what are the Cubs supposed to do? To me, the most obvious thing is to reach out and call back up Javier Assad. I don't even know why they put Javier Assad, sent Javier Assad back down again to AAA. I don't know what they got against him. I've probably only seen one real bad start from Javier Assad this season. Outside of that, I feel like he's been reliable for the Chicago Cubs. I know Bruce Levine talked about Javier Assad and how he feels that the Cubs must not feel like he fits in with the grand scheme of things that they're trying to do, which I think is completely asinine, because I'm like, Javier Assad's a ground ball pitcher. He gets outs and everything like that. Sure, he runs up a pitch count high, but at the same time, he's not going to get a lot of strikeouts, but he is going to get you ground outs. He is somebody that can get you out, and that's more than you can say for Jordan Wicks. You called up Jordan Wicks, and he couldn't get nothing. That was embarrassing. Both times you let him start, Chicago Cubs got rocked quickly. Javier Assad has proven MLB success. He doesn't beat himself, and he's competitive in every outing. So to me, if you should make a move to the bullpen for Shota, putting Javier Assad there is absolutely an option. But I think this is the best option, and I think this is what everybody wants to see. Trade for an ace. Freddie Peralta. We already did an episode about the Chicago Cubs potentially signing Freddie. Like I said, he's been a division rival for a long, long time. Now he's with the Mets, but the Mets aren't going anywhere quickly. He's a proven ace. He got swing and miss stuff. Would you trade Matt Shaw for Freddie Peralta if it meant replacing Shota Imanaga? I would only do it if Freddie would agree off jump to sign an extension. Or you look at somebody like Sandy Alcantara. We've talked about it before, going back to the well with Miami. Former Cy Young winner. He's a power arm. He's a workhorse. He's dependable. If Shota isn't the answer, why not go get a real ace? Move Shota to the bullpen. Let him pitch out the bullpen for you. He could be a long inning. He could be a long stretch inning relief guy for you if the game already gets out of hand. But the real question here, and this may be the point that rubs people the wrong way, what if the Cubs completely misread Shota Imanaga and who he is as a player? Dude's 32 years old, velocity is an elite, relies heavily on command, and once that command slips, mistakes get punished every single time. Maybe 2024 wasn't his new normal. Maybe it was the best version of Shota we're ever going to see. Now, again, y'all, I'm not rooting against Shota Imanaga. I hope he proves me wrong. But the Cubs are trying to win a championship, not hand out participation trophies. If Matthew Boyd is healthy, if Edward Cabrera is healthy, if Jameson Taillon can get his act together, you keep Colin Ray, who I think is fairly good as a starter, very serviceable. You go trade for an ace. That's a viable for starting five. And you move Shota Imanaga around. But listen, if Shota keeps giving up crooked numbers, Craig Counsell has a responsibility to make a change. Jed Hoyer has a responsibility to make a change. The Cubs cannot let loyalty get in the way of potential October baseball. Listen, this ain't easy, but this is the major leagues. And if you are going to compete, you got to have good pitching. No more of these 3-4 home run games from Shota Imanaga and Jameson Taillon. We got to get this cleaned up, guys. But listen, that's my episode for tonight. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And of course, every single time the Chicago Cubs win a game, we fly the W right here on Chicago Cubs Central. It's a 1:20 start as we welcome the Giants, who just finished up beating up on Milwaukee. Tomorrow, Friday, they're going to do the class. They're going to do the rock and roll or the blues, the Chicago City Blues. And like I said, the Chicago Cubs hoping to get another victory. Let's start stacking some victories, man. You got Colorado, you got the Giants, you got obviously another. You won't see the Athletics anymore, I don't think. But you got the Giants and Colorado in multiple series coming up. Take advantage of these series and win them. All right, guys. I'll be back with you tomorrow for another episode of Chicago Cubs Central. Until then, go Cubs, go.
Thank you for watching another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, the #1 spot for all Chicago Cubs content. Remember to like, share, subscribe for more Cubs content.